the only way to start your day.
Well said.
Well, je vous en prie, monsieur.
Merci à vous aussi.
Oui.
Oui.
Thank you for being here this morning. And Dennis has taken us to a francophone country this morning for our proverb.
We're in Benin. And one thing that stands out about Benin is when you talk about the Dahomey Amazons, right? And these are the elite all-female military unit that existed between the 17th and 19th century. And we just paused to look at the time and how sophisticated they were in including women into their military. Speaks of even the country today as we struggle to find 2/3 gender rule, including women in military. There are those who did it. Perhaps we just need to trace back on our roots and say we can do it. But let's go to the proverb today. The one who questions never loses the way. How would you interpret it?
I think it is, thank you, it is a very basic wisdom, and it's not new. The oracle at Delphi asked who the wisest man in Greece was. It said it was Socrates, and it was basically because Socrates believed that he did not know anything. So the inquiring mind is a mind that gropes for the truth. And the mind that gropes for the truth gropes for what is noble. It gropes for what is divine. It gropes for God, because God is the truth, and the truth is God. So those who seek knowledge seek God, and they can never get lost.
My goodness.
You know?
It's quite deep, but then
It's quite deep, yeah.
it falls really nicely for us this morning. You've joined us when we've just come up with a moment of a bit of frustration, Barrack.
Yes.
Earlier this morning when we were looking at a number of things, and you know, and I just want the difference between what we do here and in other sports is that we will have a real conversation as opposed to me throwing questions at you and you answering
Indeed.
in a manner that, you know, perhaps is politically correct or that would, you know, fuel the desires and ambitions of those who listen. But that we will have conversations and we will give opinion that will almost, hopefully, always be rooted in reality and or fact, because those are not always the same thing.
Indeed.
And so we will have those conversations and we will be emotional about them and we will feel about them, because I think that's what we are called to do as citizens of any country, where things are going right or wrong. And so when we say we have that conversation, it's real. And we are coming from a place of feeling the situation or calling things out that should not be, or lauding and applauding those things which have been done well, and that we will not be biased or partisan when it comes to those issues. So I wanted to say that I felt it was necessary too. But then when we look at the state of the nation and we look at political promises that may have been fulfilled or may not have, when I look at all of that and the dream of where a country wants to go in the future, and then I look at people being shot, or I look at children not going to school, or I look at women and men having to trek 200 kilometers over days to look for water, then I say it's time for us to have a real conversation about the state of the nation. And I say that if you look at people being tear gassed in a church where they've gone to worship to look for that truth and God that you talk about, perhaps it's time for us to relook things.
Yes, thank you very much once again. And you present before us a cocktail of absurdities within our nation. And if I selected as an entry point the aspect of women, men and women for that matter, trekking hundreds of miles in search of water. I'm reminded that I grew up in this country in the 1960s and in the 70s. Towards the late 60s, they used to tell us in government that in the year 1975, we would have water in every homestead in the country. And it does appear that 50 years later, I think it's 51 years now, since 1975, we are still waiting for 1975 to happen. That is how good our hopes are in this country and on this continent. We live on cocktails of hopes that are preached by the political class, which is essentially a confidence-building class. They are merchants of confidence. Every leader almost in the political space on the continent of Africa is a man or woman of confidence. They preach forlorn hope, and we, the citizens, have been paralyzed into some narcotizing and dysfunctional spaces so that we still go out there to cheer them. Look at the things that are happening within the places of worship. The place of worship is a very regimented environment. Certainly, I think so, within the order of the so-called mainstream churches.
Yeah.
I belong to one of those faiths. Be not misled by my attire. Because I belong to one of those faiths. I was born into it, taught the Christian faith, and I can proclaim without any fear of contradiction that despite my inadequacies and deficiencies, I am a Christian. I'm Christian. And so within the Christian church itself, mainstream Christian church, I belong to the Anglican Church of Kenya, there is regimented order of service. The thing that we call liturgy is regimented from the beginning to the very end.
Yeah.
But within that context, you'll find that a politician, an interloper, has been given space to pollute the spiritual tranquility of the worshippers. We come into these places with all manner of challenges, financial, physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. We expect our spiritual superiors to serve us, to administer the service that they've been given. But they're the ones who bring this class to sit at the forefront on very hallowed pews. They greet them with supported hands because at the end of it all, they expect to be given some stuff. I see that we are telling the president in a front page commentary, President, stop this. The president is himself one of the villains in this regard.
Okay.
Because we see him occupying space that he should not in the place of worship. The entire retinue around him belongs to that docket of villains. The political opposition belongs to that space of those villains. And I'm afraid the church ministers themselves are abetting this, because anyone and everyone who comes to worship in church should be treated as equal. True. It's one of the grounds that level us as ordinary mortals. It ought to remind us that whoever you are, one of these days you are going to pack up and they are going to vaporize you in dust and ashes, or they are going to take you 6 feet under. Each and every one of us. The church is one such environment. But it is the spiritual superiors in the first instance who receive these people who know very well what is likely to happen. So we must start there. And then the rest of us, as the flock that flocks into that space, and we even clap when people spew drivel in the place of worship. We must hold very honest conversations with ourselves. The false promises that we have been given. Everybody in politics today is a prophet, giving us false prophecies about taking us to Canaan, about taking us to Singapore, and we buy that drivel.
Dr. Ari, we live in a country where you just pause to look at, even on personal levels, where we are as a country. And one, it is very emotional, because we have children who want to go to school, and one would hope, especially with the current economic position that the country finds itself, that the best place to take your child to would be a public school. But you find parents today do not want to take their children to public schools because there is nothing there for them. It is a sad situation that you find parents in these economic situation are forced to dig even deeper into their pockets to give their child the very best that has been guaranteed in the Constitution. You talk about healthcare. You go to hospitals, you've paid for your premiums, and you get there. There is no medication. Doctors are on strike. And every other challenge that is in these hospitals. You come to our roads, you just want to get to your home peacefully. But what do you find? Those that have been given the mandate to maintain law and order are the ones on the forefront breaking law and order. One asks the question, if we are to get to these places, metaphorically speaking, want to get to Singapore or South Korea, one would say even just Ethiopia, how are we getting there if we are not fixing the fundamentals?
Yeah, Ethiopia was once a place we left behind. Singapore itself was where we left behind, where we were coming from. South Korea was what we left behind. And we are now being told to go there. And I say these things because when you have been around, you become part of the national institutional memory. And I can tell you that as a young man growing up in the city of Nairobi, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere of Tanzania used, without any intended cynicism, to tell the people of his country that if you want to go to London, just cross the border, go to Nairobi here, you will see London. And it was London. That on Ronald Ngala Street, those days called Duke Street. On Duke Street, we waited for a Kenya bus to take us to Jericho, where we lived. Other people waited there for it to take them to Woodley. Others waited for it to take them to wherever. And you knew exactly at what time the bus was coming. And there was that thing rolling up there, the sign that showed you that number 19 is arriving in 3 minutes. And when it was late for whatever reason, by a minute and a half a minute, it would show you that the bus would delay by 30 seconds. It was here in this city of Nairobi. You told somebody that I'll arrive in Wangige at 3:46 p.m. and you got to Wangige at 3:46 p.m. That we lived in a city where there was clean drinking water, that you could actually drink from your cupped hands, palms of your hands. That we lived in a city where the city council painted our houses. Once every year, they were fumigated of rodents and other vectors every year. That we lived in a country where we went to public hospital and got treatment 100% for free. In Jericho, where I lived, we went to Ofafa Lumumba, where there was a dispensary. And if for some reason they thought that they could not deal with your situation, they graduated you to the Rhodes Avenue Hospital or to Casino Hospital or to Kenyatta National Hospital. Dennis Ndu and our audience, if there is a problem with education, it then does not mean that we must find private solutions. If public schools are not working, if public hospitals are not working, if the public transport system is not working, then the government must go home. It should go home. And each and every one of us who adulates us and who says, who claps, who celebrates, when these individuals materialize to hoodwink us, should also ask themselves a few questions. Look, why should we have somebody whose children go to private schools being the Minister for Education, for example?
First of all.
Why should we have as permanent or principal secretary somebody whose children are in the Cambridge education system? Why should we have within the health dockets individuals who do not go to public hospitals and yet they are responsible for those public hospitals? Why should we have as governor an individual who, when he has a flu, goes to see a private physician
In Germany.
And he is in charge of the health system in the county? Why should I trust the food from the pot that you are serving me when you cannot eat it from that pot? So that is part of the problem. And that problem, I'd like to lay, first of all, squarely in the docket, at the doorstep of the middle class in this country. The middle class in this Kenyan context and Africa is one of our biggest problems. It is an apathetic demographic. Fellows who will read the newspaper, it takes me 3 or 4 days to write my column. They will read it in 5 minutes and dismiss it.
And not internalize it?
They don't internalize it. They say, look what Barrack is saying here. Moses Wetangula will call me on Sunday morning to say, Barrack, what is this you have written here about me? Well, okay? All right? Instead of interrogating the issues that have been placed there. The middle class is a problem. The middle class, first of all, thanks to them, they pay taxes. The country rides on their back. But having done that, they're not interested in finding out what their taxes are doing. They think that they will find a private solution to every public problem, to every public challenge. The road is not working, I buy a four-wheel drive vehicle. I will fly to Kisumu or to Mombasa. We should be asking for multiple carriageways, roads, because we are paying those taxes. The middle class, the school system is not working. I take my children to a private school. The health sector, public health sector is not working. I take my children, I take myself to a private hospital. That is a problem. It must wake up that class.
That should be the thing that activates this wake up in us that stirs something. And even as you speak, I feel a stirring in my gut, because I say, all right, I've always been of the opinion that, and maybe not just an opinion, but the good book says it, that if you know what is right to do and you do not do it, it's not just a slap on the wrist. It is actually a sin. It is a sin that you have been colored by something. It is immoral. It is immoral. Because you paint a picture. Somebody has actually said here in the comments that you've painted a picture about Nairobi and they're wondering, which Nairobi is this that you're talking about? Because it sounds like something that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like Alice in Wonderland when she was seeing creatures that we don't understand what they are. But this Nairobi was run by individuals with one head, like the rest of us, who made sure that the bus was on time, who made sure that garbage was collected, that there was clean water running through taps that people could actually use. So what happened? And then what needs to be done to re-engineer that status? Because right now the promises, they sound good. And I must admit, they sound really good. The promises sound good. And why they attach to people's minds is that because you can imagine yourself there. Because what you do when somebody comes and says, let's go to Singapore, with the technology that we have today, where you do a quick Google thing, don't you? And you go and you say, yes, this place where it looks as though the streets are lined in gold. I want to go there, don't I? Yes, I do. But are we ready to do the work that is required to get there? At the very least, somebody took that gold and sprinkled it on the streets, at the very least. And the promise, unfortunately, blinds people from the work behind the promise. And are we looking at the work that needs to be done? And if we are, these people who are talking about the promise, are they the people to do the work? Can we run away from delivering the promise and doing the work that is required to get to the promise?
It is good, actually, that they talk about these things. It is an admission of the reality that we live in a dislocated context and that something needs to be done. And it is true, Dennis, it's true, Ndo, that Nairobi was what I have said and a lot more. That the paths to our doorsteps in Makongeni, which is now coming down, were tarmacked. They tarmacked it up to the doorstep. In Jericho, in Ziwani, in Botela, in Kaloleni. Don't even mention places like California, because that was another world. Don't talk about Woodley today, Joseph Kangede. It was another world. It was out of Africa that the garbage you talk about was collected every day. That the city council of Nairobi brought the dustbins on the first day of each year. They collected the old ones at the end of at the start of the year and brought a new one. And the fellows we called Kamero. Kamero. We used to chant Kamero, Nakauti, Nakagoro Kamwe. There are people who grew up with me who will relate to that. And then there were the other fellows whom we called Kamdoya, who are coming and cleaning up the place and mowing the lawns. The lawns in Uhuru Estate, in Jerusalem, in Maringo. My friends, we were unfortunately rolling on the energy called inertia. Inertia is like when you are on a bus and it's moving very fast towards a given direction. If the driver applies emergency brake suddenly, the bus will swing you towards the direction that you are going. You will not go towards the direction you are coming from. That inertia, that energy will push you towards the direction you are going. Tragically, the energy that we seem to have enjoyed in the first 10, 15 years of independence was regrettably the energy of the colonial dispensation, the discipline of the colonial dispensation, the dispensation that washed these streets of Nairobi 4 times every day. You came across those trucks with water, the way you see them in London, cleaning the streets of Nairobi, the pavements. People walked on paved sides of the roads. Not what you are seeing today. There were no potholes in Nairobi. I started seeing potholes in the city of Nairobi in 1981. And I speak as somebody who grew up in this city, went to primary school in this city, attended part of my secondary school in this city, saw the first traffic lights. We did not even need traffic lights. People were disciplined, motorists stopped. I saw the first traffic lights at the junction of Ronald Ngala Street and Government Avenue, now Moi Avenue, in 1974. That was when the street lights came. There used to be, at the very height of traffic, the policeman who would stand on a pedestal, and he would be waving this way and that way, and people obeyed. There was order. Even matatus, when Jomo Kenyatta eventually allowed them to function, because they were anathema. And I recall the day when Mzee Kenyatta first allowed matatus now to work. There used to be in this country something that was called Gatundu Self-Help Hospital. And you got a lot of things going if you made a contribution towards Gatundu Self-Help Hospital. You've asked, where did it begin? Where did the rain begin beating us? And I think it started beating us from a distance through Gatundu Self-Help Hospital. I remember the day the Mira people went to see His Excellency, the President, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, and the function was live on national radio. And Mzee was asking them, is this thing good? You say it will not mess up people, hata ukikula na hata wanaume, hiyo mambo ingine itakuwa ni safi tu, hakuna. Then he said, okay, kutoka leo tunahalalisha. That was the beginning. And government is a gravy train that you seek to go into government to eat. That's why they arrived at government that had people who very ostentatiously proclaimed, it's now our turn to eat.
Do we make the connection between these things that we see and the leadership that we put in place? Because countries are organized, entities, that you have a system of government in place to do the very things that we talk about, to, safeguard livelihoods, live by the Constitution, create a conducive environment where certain things can be done, like, where jobs can then be created, and enhance and enable a thriving private sector across board. That's the organized structure for nations is government. And there's certain things that need to be done. Do we make the connection between these things that need to be done and the leadership that we then put in place, who we delegate our sovereignty to? Do we make the connection? Also, like, when I see that, we've got so much money lost to corruption, and that we say, well, somebody's there stealing, and we say, okay, well, they need to be dealt with. We don't make the connection between that and then what we see later, that your children will have an issue here in terms of capitation, that tomorrow there will be a problem at the health, there will be a problem with health. So when you see, do we make the connection between things not working and poor leadership, or between things not working and the decisions that we make as individuals, or the connection between corruption and then the livelihoods of Kenyans that cannot be secured? Are we making those connections? Should we be making the connections at all?
Thank you. I think the answer is yes and no. No, in the sense that there are demographics within our context who do not even understand their own lives, leave alone understanding the wider national life and the wider national affairs and the things that need to be done. You know, the kinds of people who will tell us that so-and-so has read the Constitution, he has read the draft, and if he says it is good, it is good. If he says it is bad, it is bad. The kind of individual who will see two people appointed into cabinet, and they will say, we are now not joining the Gen Zs because we are in government. Okay? that kind of individual, that kind of demographic does not understand. But the fact that the Generation Z are able to join the dots between their state of affairs and the broader public state of affairs and the finance bill and say Ruto must go is an indication that that consciousness, that awareness is there. But that awareness must migrate from the influence of money. It must migrate from the influence of ethnic magic, that you find a young man who is clad in a three-piece suit and who is glowing in flawless eloquence, making the correct pronouncements, and within days, that fellow has been procured. Someone has procured him. He has taken the eloquence into the wrong spaces, using them to merchandise wrong things and to even intimidate his intellectual superiors who understand things better. That surprises us. But it shouldn't surprise us very much, because when you see the wretched political class that we have in our country, remember that there are young people who are watching them and who see them as the role models. There's a saying among our people that when mother cow is chewing cud, the calves are looking at the mouth and they soon enough begin chewing. When you see these characters who scream, these characters who say scandalous things, I saw my senator. I come from Kakamega County, and I saw my senator somewhere in Lugari in a clip that is doing the rounds in social media. Dennis and Kondu, you may not understand what he's saying. He's berating one of his adversaries, and he is telling his adversary that before you come to talk to me, be man enough. There's an old man, 80-something-year-old, who has snatched his wife, your wife from you. Go and fetch your wife for a start. I'm the husband of many wives, and each morning before I wake up, I have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And the language is lurid. It is obscene, it's obtuse. And there are people there, grown-ups,
Clapping.
in their multitudes, who are laughing and clapping and encouraging him, and he is going on. But there are also young people in that audience who are watching, and they're taking lessons from that individual. They're understanding that this is what leadership is about, that you go to some place in Homa Bay and in Migori, and you will find the fellows. If you do not understand any one of the Luya dialects, you probably will understand some of the Luo dialects, and you will hear terrible, horrific, horrendous things with people calling themselves bad boys and bad girls because of the obtuse things that they are doing, salacious and lurid language and idiom. And the young people are looking at them and they are saying, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to do.
When I get...
You go to the coast and you find a matronly lady who has been a minister at some point talking about something she calls nyege and what it is and how it functions. And my goodness, those are the problems, that we do not have the right kinds of individuals in leadership. You and I, in the middle class, people who have gone to school, good schools, good education, believe that the political space must be surrendered to a kakistocratic demographic of the citizenry, and that they sink the country by fathoms of meters every day as we watch and do nothing about it. We look for the green card to go to America. Thanks, there's now President Trump, who is trampling upon us and telling us to go back where we have come from, to our SH countries. Okay? Thanks that we have people out there who are beginning to resist us, and that we are probably going to come back home and know, as they say in Kiswahili, ukiona vyaelea vyaundwa, unda vyako. The middle class, I keep going back there. It must be sensitive. So, sorry to take such a long route to answer the question. The Generation Z must come back. And I'm Gen Z, eh?
Of course
Yes,
you are.
of course. So Gen Z spoke, and we've had a problem. Everyone says middle class is that demography that sleeps, that does not care what is happening in the country. And even over the weekend, having a discussion with one of my peers, and they just don't care, because one would say, what can I do? The people at power have all the means to do whatever it is they want. As a mere person who I get my salary, I take my children to school, I can access healthcare, I'm able to drive point one, point B. And I told him that's where the problem is at, because as the middle class, those who you look at how even NSSF now is coming hot on heels into the payslip afresh. You can't afford to just sit there and not act, which then asks the question, Gen Z middle class are the future and the leaders that the country needs today, but they must take the mantle, because power is never given. People fight for power.
See, there's something called the consent of the governed. And in the 1600s, John Locke was talking about the consent of the governed. I invite those who are interested to look at his 2 treatises of government and what he says. Other people, the ones called the utilitarians, people like Jeremy Bentham, James Mill, John Stuart Mill, and others, had their own permutations of the same. And the consent of the governed can be given loudly or quietly. If you have 10 million people in Uganda who have registered as voters, not turning up to vote, they have given their consent by silence. There are those who turn out to vote and they vote for Yoweri Museveni. They have given their consent actively. He talks about tacit and taciturn consent. So it's been given. We are the ones who give that consent. Whether we vote or we do not vote, we are part of it. Now, the tragedy with thinking that you are all right, you are in your comfort space, is that very soon you run out of that oxygen. the famous preacher in the Nazi days who said first they came for the Jews, and I said nothing because I was not a Jew. They came for the communists, and I said nothing because I was not a communist. And it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where they eventually come for you. And this thing of they will come for you does not belong to some dim past. There are things that happen every day. You saw that people like Arthur Miller of the Crucible play fame was talking about McCarthyism. Senator Joseph McCarthy in the United States hunting for communists, much the same way they hunted for witches in Salem in the 1500s. Everyone is involved. We are all involved. You can be involved by speaking out or be involved silently. Wale Shoinka has told us that the man dies in everyone who keeps silent in the moment of oppression, in the moment of bad rule. The bad things happening in this country. Today, and we keep quiet, as we sit here, there are people trooping into State House, Nairobi. They're going there to hold a political party caucus. The United Democratic Alliance has got a meeting in State House to hold a political party function to make decisions on how they are going to converge with ODM to sustain themselves in power. They are not going to converge to talk about anything that is supposed to help this country to move forward. But even if they were converging for that purpose, State House is not the place to go.
Even if the chair of the party is the president.
It does not matter. William Ruto does things in this country as if he's the first person to be president. And he must be told no. Especially by those of us who have had the privilege and the blessing of living in this country as adult individuals. Jomo Kenyatta died when I was 20 years old. So I know about the Jomo Kenyatta rule. I know about the Moi rule. I know about the Kibaki regime. I've lived under Uhuru Kenyatta. And now I obtain under William Ruto. And I can tell William Ruto, you are not the first individual to be the president of this country. These things which you are doing, State House was there. Moi never held KANU meetings in State House. If he wanted to do KANU parliamentary group meetings, he went to Parliament. That's where he did those meetings. If he wanted to have KANU delegates meetings, he went to the Jomo Kenyatta International Conference Center, as it was called those days. It was the KANU headquarters. They did those meetings there. Jomo Kenyatta, the same. Moi Kibaki did his political meetings away from State House. I think that train began beating us from far under President Uhuru Kenyatta, who began whipping Parliament from State House. And Ruto now does it with unbridled brazenness. Nyerere used to tell us, Ikulu ni mahali patakatifu. Sio mahali pa kufanyia vituko vya aina hii. This is wrong. Somebody should have stopped this by now. I don't know who that somebody is because we always say there was a job which anyone could have done and everyone thought that somebody was going to do it. Nobody did it. So everyone blamed everybody. This is wrong. President Ruto began by whipping Kenya Kwanza MPs from State House. When you go to State House, you are intimidated. You are afraid. And he's there exercising the power of state. And so you are afraid. And everything that is said, you say yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. It is.
Perhaps that's why he does it. Perhaps that's why it's done, Barrack.
Then
Because he understands that for what you've just said, that the grandeur of it all and the power that is just resident in that space is enough to convince any man or woman about a position that is being offered to them, or a position that is being told to them that they must take. And so perhaps that's why it's being done, because there is the awareness that is the case of emotions when somebody comes there.
Then it must be called by its correct name: autocracy, dictatorship. It must be called by its correct name. And it is a pity. And I say these things, Ndu, having listened to me carefully, you must understand that I've been on this landscape for long. It doesn't matter. I don't have much left to do except to tell the country the truth, including speaking the truth to power, until I drop dead. Ruto must be told that he's a dictator. And the country must be told that it should not accept dictatorship, because dictatorship never knows where and when to stop. It's like a cancer. It eats into the fabric of the nation gradually. It metastasizes and gets to a point where you cannot do anything about it. No amount of chemotherapy, no amount of other intervention will do anything about it. It must be called what it is. These children you are taking to school, and now they are not even going there. Yeah, you have seen. Because education itself is dead. Yes. You ask the people in the ministry, those who are honest and who are close to you, they will tell you the truth. And they'll tell you, but don't say, I said this. You, yeah. Don't say, I talked to you. They will tell you, we actually don't know where we are going. They will tell you that we don't even know whether we can develop the infrastructure. The president wakes up in the morning, makes populist pronouncements that every child must go to school, whether they have paid fees or not.
Or with their old uniform, whether they have the old uniform or not.
When they get to school, where are they going to sleep?
Good question.
Which blankets are they going to use? Which mattresses are they going to use? Which water are they going to use to bathe? What food are they going to eat? This kind of cheap populism that you come there and, when you find a man speaking at the speed of lightning in a single register throughout a campaign register, and he's bilas, angry, he is petulant, then you know there's something terribly wrong with this individual who speaks to frighten, to inveigle, and mislead the nation. Focus is 100% on remaining in power, and you can't even predict what they will do after that. If President Ruto is perchance re-elected, the next conversation in this country is going to be removal of term limits.
It's not a very good picture that we're looking at. It's not even being painted because, as an artist takes a brush to canvas, you're not quite sure what's going to come out at the end of it. But this is a picture that we're looking at already. Nobody's mixing paints. It's very clear what we see. The question is now that as decisions are being made in the next year, as people are being whipped in a particular direction, whether it's at State House today, a rally atop vehicles on Saturday, coming into the next couple of weeks, which is probably going to be very heavy politically, of what must Kenyans then at this point be aware?
Kenyans must be aware that to surrender authority, because Dennis, if I may tie that with what Dennis Aseto asked earlier on about power. Power resides with the people. And the people must give their consent to conscientious leaders. Leaders who are there not for self-aggrandizement, not for theft, but for the welfare of the nation. And they must understand that when you surrender to a kakistocratic class, then the direction to be taken is just one, and it is in the abyss. You are perpetually sinking into hell. They are going to see the Finance Bill 2026, and it's going to be the worst of all the finance bills that the country has ever known. The Generation Z, Generation Millennium, and other generations, and now Gen Z is a political concept. It's not a genealogical appellation. We must come out and say, no, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Dr. Barrack Muluka, thank you very much.
Asante.
Asante. Good morning, 8 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice. This is the Situation Room. The